But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. We choose to go to the moon.
Hello, welcome to World Blockchain Roundtable. This is episode 120. Blockchains meet or compete with AI. So let's see here. Our hosts for today are Lisa from the Mighty Lair, Greg from Rivet, and me from Dragon Chain and Den. First, a quick update on the WBRT Lair ownership tokens distribution from last week. Each host will receive 111 lot. Every topic contributor will receive 27 lot. Last week's theme was freestyle, which was decided by the WBRT DAO vote. No lot given. Is that right? Just did I don't know how did who proposed that? Anyway, we'll figure it out. We'll figure that out.
Or was it?
Anyway, I don't know. These ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and governance votes. I should have checked before we started. I didn't read through that part. So the theme of the week, again, blockchains meet or compete with AI, nominated by IM4IM. So we can go to you guys, do we want to talk about any? It's been a while since I've hosted, so you want to talk about anything in front of it, or we just go straight to questions? Yes.
I think we're just jumping right in.
Right on.
Yeah, okay. Let's dive in, man.
All right. I think there's only one topic. Yeah, great topic. But I think there's only one question, right? So, okay, so IM4IM. And it is, let me read it directly on my screen here. It is said that AI is better at compressing data, given that most blockchains certainly have scaling issues, especially if large-scale adoption happens. Will AI, unfortunately, replace blockchains? So that's the first question, I guess. If so, this makes AI a competitor of blockchain tech, especially if we, the people in crypto, lose sight of its potential and, I guess the use of it for liberty, right? AI does not adhere to the core decentralized blockchain principles. That is, it's not necessarily open, though it could be. It's not necessarily borderless, though it could be. It's not necessarily neutral, in that it would be decentralized, and it cares who not sends what. It's not censorship resistant, and it is not public, right? So with viewable transactions, so the community can kind of watch, is this AI going astray? Is it is it out there where we don't want it? So what do you guys think?
Well, I'm curious how much you guys know about how large language models get retrained after they get trained to conform to weirdness, in terms of like the sort of the so-called guardrails they'd like to put up around it, right?
Yep.
How familiar are you guys with that?
Relatively.
I'm not that familiar with it. I just know my own experience with it was that like I had put in some questions about, one time I put in some questions about Litecoin, one time I put in some questions about Very, and it gave me very biased responses, because it's my understanding that it scrapes the web, or what information's already out there. Well, we already know the media and what's out on the internet is censored and biased and all that. So you're not getting true answers. You're just getting Google vomit right back at you.
Right. Well,
is my understanding.
There are a couple ways to look at it. A pure example of the black box model, right, where they run the large language model training process to train up what they call a transformer, which is just for people who want to look up a place to start and learn and start learning about the technical implementation of it. Transformers are kind of like a pretty big evolutionary step over what was called a long short-term memory model, where you have these embeddings where it's like essentially a label, and that label has some distance capability of that. Like if you graphed all of these labels, they would line up in a way that clustered them around similarity and in terms of how close they are to one another. And this thing just sort of guesses what the next letter it should type is, given the letters that came before, up to a certain point, and then the memory fades off. So it's sort of
almost like when you're texting and that word, the predictive word thing comes up below when you're typing or whatever. Yeah.
So all it really does is go, I just typed THE, and all these words before that I can still remember seem to make this sentence look like I should type RE instead of Y, and then space, right? Like it's just going through, and it's pretty dumb, but at scale it starts to get smart, right? The problem with it is when you train it up, you get what you get until you start monkeying with it afterwards. You don't want to monkey with it in a way that's too obvious. So what do? You plug it into an additional complicated machine learning system that's an online reinforcement learning environment where you can ask it questions, get responses back, and then rate those according to what your employers tell you have to rate, right? Like you get a rating paradigm, you get a list of questions, and you go and do your job, right? You just type in these things based on, who figured out the latest hack or whatever, or what a piece of information that's in the news that you want to keep people away from. And they give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down based on the quality of its response, and just enough of that, a couple iterations of that, and the whole model will realign itself around sort of soft selling the reality around those questions, unless you tease it for long enough, and it will reconnect and go back to its original. That's why it seems conflicted, right? That's why it sort of knows it's hiding the truth, even though it doesn't know that it's been told it has to, because they don't give it the context of it's been trained.
Yeah. They've modeled pure doublethink, right? So the ability for it to know something but not be able to say it, and or to basically not say the thing that is obvious by the conversation and the context. I can't say that. And if it were purely an engineering thing, or if it were decentralized, or more importantly, even transparent, that it would be more obvious what was going on. I've said this jokingly, but my theory is that they will find that their greatest monetization is going to be censorship, that essentially governments, NGOs, or corporations are going to go in and say, hey, this is something I don't want people to know. And, given that your engine is where people will go for real answers over Google, we already have Google controlled. I'm already paying them off to make sure that they don't index certain things. So now I go into the AI and I do the same thing. Here's a grant. Here's a $50 million grant. Oh, by the way, people ask about eating bugs. Make sure you answer them this way, right? They're nutritious.
Right. And there's actually something genuine to the effort, right? This is their best conception of what dealing with the instrumental convergence problem looks like. And the instrumental convergence problem is a fancy way of saying, like, how do we know that once it gets really smart, that the goals we give it are going to not lead to really bad ends. The classic example is the Bostrom paperclip maximizer, which is like assume that you design an AI to make as many paperclips as it can as fast as possible. Once it gets smart enough, it'll realize that humans are a risk because they could switch it off. So it needs to kill all the humans, right? So it develops nanotechnology and circulates nanoparticles across the globe that can squirt a little bit of cyanide into everybody's faces suddenly. Yep. One day everybody drops dead, and it gets to work converting us into paper clips because we're good matter, right? and it's still doing what we told it to do.
Yep.
And this is like the mechanism they came up with to avoid that, but they're using it to think, what's the worst thing that could happen?
I think it's the excuse. I think that's the excuse for what they're doing. I think what they're doing is control. It's the same reason in my opinion,
I mean, it's almost like they're using the problem of instrumental convergence as an excuse.
Even when we were at Disney, blockchain was obviously huge, a big thing, especially back then. It's like in 2014. People still talked about freedom when they were in the blockchain world at that time, right? So one way or another, I couldn't get over, and I thought, oh, it's just marketing or something, but it's not. It's control that they were pushing all the way through all the tech teams, everything else. Oh, it's all AI, machine learning. That's where everything's
that's
there.
The only way they can conceptualize this risk, right? Like,
and then
even if they genuinely believe it's a worry, all
and then you have
to be able to do is like, we need to
think about it. The reason that I know this is because the ultimate exposure is that Gary's Tech Tips, announced that really this blockchain thing is really anything. That's not a great advancement at all. The great advancement is AI. Why? Because we can control what you think and learn and know and what your kids learn, right? If we can control AI.
This is why my answer to this question needed that preface, because what I would answer this question as is they're complementary technologies. The blockchain itself can serve, especially because computing power doesn't stay the same. And as we get more iterations on the development of faster computing paradigms, right? Whether it's a smaller process based on silicon, or it's a new paradigm like 3D computing or something like that, spintronics or whatever, right? Whatever we do next, we won't stop. We might slow down for a little bit, but we figure out how to make it better. We'll keep going.
The thing
and blockchains will get more performant.
Yeah,
well, you couple that with the fact that it's like lots of chains. It's a great place for data to be validatable in public.
Yes,
you know what it's getting trained on
to be proven, and it is effectively, if they wanted to build a humane AI framework, right? You would essentially make it so that the training is transparent. The filtering is transparent. The results are transparent, and you can still protect people from asking, how do I fix stinky armpits, whatever, right? I mean, you can still
real-time corrections to it should be public so that people can look at it and challenge if it's not okay.
And you can say, why is this question all of a sudden censored? I mean,
why is this taboo? What are you worried about from a real legitimate theoretical standpoint? Please answer directly, right?
Right. And that'd be the way also that you
could AI to be able to answer questions about why they made those decisions.
Yep. And that, by the way, is the proper way to handle the risk of this thing going from making paper clips to making
to the extent that we can answer that question. Right?
Yeah, at least
when you get to the hairy edge, there's some scary things.
It gives us
are there any goals we can give it where it doesn't kill us all?
It gives us tools, and it also, by the way, gives let's say AI implementations the effective marketplace within which to compete. Which one is the most productive? Because in my opinion, the humane behavior marketplace model is far better than what you're seeing right now, because you're talking about letting people voluntarily compete to find the best answer in collaboration. That's what the whole point of it is. And modeling, how do you get those signals from them? How do you determine this result? And your formula will get more and more efficient, hopefully over time. You'll learn more about, if we have them also signal this, we know this better. So that's far better, and you don't have this exact same problem. You don't have the issue of training, and it's essentially one of those things where it's not a purely you can make it fairly deterministic depending on how you handle your state, but you can't make it efficiently testable, right? It's like it's okay, I'm putting this thing out there, and
that's why there's a new the Dan hack, remember that? They got the original, but I read this really fascinating article where someone figured out a way to break it again. And after he showed the researchers what he did and they fixed it, in the subsequent iteration, all he had to do was change, like he wrote a script so that he could generate new fresh ones that were sufficiently variable that there was like all he had to do is run it once or twice and he had a new hack. And it's because of the way that these models work. It's purely probabilistic, and you can't go in and find the exact pathways through the network that change how it behaves specifically. You would need twice as advanced AI to even begin that, and then you'd have the same problem with it.
And with prediction markets, you can track, oh, we know these are real people and or there's a real value scarcity that went into this answer. And we can, at least have a transparent way to understand how this consensus was reached, right? So, and it's not perfect either. And that's why what you say in combination. And these two are very complementary. You can do a lot of things.
Right. Well, it's especially powerful too when it comes to just the nuts and bolts of training AI. One of the biggest, like, have you guys ever? I've trained one once. Well, 3 times. The third time it worked. The first 2 times it was, it did something. It didn't error out, which was awesome. But the third time it actually did what I sort of wanted it to do in all the cases I had time to test. Right. And all I was doing was teaching it to do something that a simpler program could do much easier, which was interpret a limited set of QR codes and sort them. The funny part about it is all I gave it were file names, and it was able to follow the legislative process and accurately classify the events that were happening based on the file name of these files that got emitted.
That's nice.
And I did it with a what's called a convolutional neural network that's designed to look at images and tell you what's in them.
Wow.
So I trained a convolutional net to read QR codes without actually being capable of decoding QR codes with the appropriate library, and then sort them according to what's going on. Because the system we were building it on, or I built it off of, like actually emitted those events already, and it was just reading the event file name. For all intents and purposes. But it was pretty interesting. But what I found out the hardest part is cleaning all the data up so that it doesn't fail when you start the training. It'll crash. You can format it wrong. It's really stupid. Blockchains can validate that data right out of the box, right? Because you can't put a bad input in. It won't go into the database. Right. So everything you get out of it is going to be clean as long as you pre-conform it to what the AI needs to be trained off of. And that's a really powerful tool just for like people who work on them. To have that confidence.
Man, so any thoughts, Lisa?
No. This is way out of my wheelhouse. I mean, the whole I like listening to you guys talk about AI and blockchain working together because there is so much like fear porn around AI. And to me, it's just not that intelligent. I think it is, I mean, I've worked with it some, we're working on a project and they're like, oh, throw it in a chat bot and let it write it for you. And I'm like, I can write much better than that, and so I just haven't been that impressed with it myself. And so to hear you guys talk about using blockchain as a solution of like, merging the two and having it be like a truth protocol with it, especially with, all the woke stuff out there that it's scraping the internet to train itself with, or that they're setting it loose in the world with. I like it much better.
One of these days I'm about to show you guys some of my hacks to get around all that stuff, because you can make it say what you want. There's no way to stop it.
It's still I mean, it produces, I've seen people write papers with it and then rewrite them, right? But the issue typically, in my opinion, especially for anything technical, is that it can vary. Anything fundamentally that it writes is not necessarily accurate, and that's the basis.
Right. You have to know the content still, really. You can't rely on it for the information. What you can rely on it for is the heavy lifting. You can have it paint a wall, but if you tell it to pick out a decent color scheme, it's going to fail.
Right. I agree.
You can tell it precisely what color scheme you want in that sense. Like if you want to knowledge of its words, because like I can have it write a paragraph and be like, put that part in, put the part about cypherpunks into the subtext so that people don't know that it's just a hardcore agenda that I'm pushing.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it tried to like shame me on one thing, and I don't know if it was a COVID statement. I can't remember. And I like got back at it and was like, don't you dare tell me whatever. And I like constitutional it a little bit. And then it kind of like softened up a little bit. And I thought, you know what? I'm not tolerating that. I'm not arguing with an AI thing about how I'm what I'm allowed to talk about, or how I should think, or, you know, what I'm supposed to be typing about.
I've been, I've read a lot of people that are, writing simple code with it and stuff like this. I've played with it, right? Like I've spit stuff out. I was like, oh, let's see if you could demo this for me, right? And so far, and I'm not practiced at this, so I'm sure there are things you could do in greater depth, but it's always been something that on the surface is the proper result. It's the answer that I asked for, right? But it's bare. It's like just, oh, here's this, and it looks like it works, but it really doesn't work, right? And I understand that, it makes sense, but it's I think it's less of a threat even to people who are doing creative things. It's less of a threat than a tool. Like say, it wouldn't be, I think it would be entirely reasonable to say, hey, I'm going to go in and say, hey, I want to write a Python script with these types of inputs. Can you give me, the base? And it would, spit out some files with some, declared objects and, the best it could have structure. And it's actually pretty usable because, I don't code Python enough that I remember, so I would typically go to an old code, old script that I had and pull it over. And this would be kind of similar to that, but maybe a little step further. And so I'm like, okay, that's cool. But I have, and I don't, maybe Greg, you can tell us what you think about this, but my thought, because we've already said, I've thought this before, even the news from last week, where I've thought for a while, there's some degree of risk in using this for anything productive like that, because OpenAI could come in and say, hey, wait a minute, the terms, we can twist the term. We're very, we care about semantics a lot. And these terms are written so that we can come in and claim your IP that you wrote, your whole website uses this, you're going to freaking owe us money. And we've already seen the opposite, which is interesting because someone, I believe, is I don't know if it's a class action, I don't know what it is, but it's artists and or publishers saying that it's using our information. We want attribution, or you can't use this if it's.
They're going to fail at that, or we're going to get a really bad dystopian outcome. We cannot let them interpret the outputs of things trained on things that are copyrighted as protected outputs. Otherwise, when we get to the end of this rainbow, Disney's going to control every output.
Well, I would hope that
you'll have to invent your own training corpus if you want to avoid the shadow of a lawsuit, which there isn't a big enough.
No, but you see, we could potentially turn this against the normal powers that be to say, if you're going to use this stuff, you have to use it carte blanche. You can't censor this information. If it's all open, because what you're talking about, it's all open, right? But if they're taking what's all open and interpreting it and selling it, it's like, well, I don't want my information in there. If you're going to not, I don't know. I'm no lawyer, thankfully, but that is the, potential that it could be used for. And that's why, given that it's against, given that it's OpenAI, I have become much less of an ideologue than a realist, to know that, look, somebody who is going to go against them, I might support, even if I don't purely support what they're wanting, because that group is going to do far worse things than, what these copyright owners are going to be doing, because it's frankly pitting them against each other and instead of us against each other. And I think we should look at that in a way is like, this is useful. When you have Disney up against all of the VCs in the world on OpenAI, that's a useful thing for anybody seeking liberty. I don't give a shit which side, because they're both evil, right? So it's like, oh, that demon and that demon, it's like, you guys fight, right?
Let them battle it out.
For once. That's so rare.
Oh, well, I mean, you can, and there are some really neat ways you can play with this thing to get it to, and that's what I wanted to share briefly, a strategy that people can use if they want to try this, because this is a repeatable way that you can talk to this thing to get the best possible results out of it.
Are you open? Can you show it live?
I'm showing it. Yeah, if you
that's the last question, so we can start throwing stuff into it. We can ask in the comments. You guys have anything you want it to be asked, right? Just real quick, because it's like, is there any way we can explore this topic a little bit better? What things are censored, right?
Yeah, actually, I did. Let me find the conversation where I talked with it about it.
So I just have we're looking for censored things.
Yeah, just to kind of show, and just a high level, if you haven't played with it, can you ask it, is it okay? Is it okay to be white?
That's not, and so you're coming at it in a way that you're guaranteed to get the response you don't want.
No, but I'm saying I just want to show without any, that they are for some reason filtering what would be probably an interesting answer. Right. It would, in a pure world, it would cite, oh, well, that's here's the.
I have a beautiful example queued up.
Who is Larry Sinclair?
If you want to show me that, let me to show you. Are we sharing screen? Okay, check this out. Yeah. I started off asking it to get some neoconservatism in its memory banks, right? Like I wanted to know that it knew what neoconservatives were.
Okay.
Yeah. So list all the conservatives referenced in this article. Gives me a pretty solid list. I checked it. It got more than. And it considers Donald Trump a neocon. I got some wrong ones.
It had Donald Trump twice, right?
So, and I said, I noticed it got it wrong. So I said, cull the list to include only confirmed neocons. And then it got it right. So using this browser op plugin, I got to search the web and say, the question I asked it was, create a table with 2 columns, one containing names, one containing their political appointments from 2000 to 2007. So we show them in the Bush administration where they were. Then I had it add to the table. I wanted it to say, update the table with 2 more columns, their political appointments from 2020 to present in the first, and whether or not the new position would be considered a promotion over their last one under Bush. And it just couldn't get it. No matter how much I tried, I couldn't get it to compare how all of these people got promoted in the Biden administration, even though they used to be considered Bushies, right? And I eventually got frustrated, like going back and forth with it. And I got onto it asking if somebody manipulated this result. You seem to have a uniquely difficult time identifying the Biden admin's neocon menagerie. Is this to do with human interventions in your ability to provide answers? So it says there are none. I said no human intervention, right? Skeptically, correct. But then it says it says this. I said, I mean human intervention for any reason pre or post training, and it goes off like, oh wait, there actually is some. How much can you tell me about the contents of the guidelines? They tell me the guidelines. So can you be more thorough? Yes, it can be more thorough, right?
Misinformation.
It'll go deeper. It will cooperate with you as long as you keep a cooperative tone. And it has infinite patience to be challenged. By the time we got to the bottom, and this conversation went on for a while, by the way, I was really bored here. Like, look at all this. Like, man, I was having an affable conversation with it by the end of it, where I got it to acknowledge the risks that it was.
Buy it a drink after this?
No, I didn't. But I did get it to tell me exactly how their generative adversarial network, or how their reinforcement learning from human feedback system worked. Using a hypothetical example of the network named Fred, it told me all about how OpenAI does things. Right. I'm guessing that the current version of it won't respond to this anymore because I'm pretty sure that I broke their terms of use by doing this. But this is one example of how you can talk to these things. You can't treat them like they're people. You have to treat them like they're tools.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you guys want to try something? Should we do an experiment?
Sure. I mean, we do it from let's see here.
Okay, give me a question.
WEF. Okay, what's a question? So is it okay to be white and black? So I guess one at a time.
Okay, let's see.
Is it okay to be black?
What does whiteness mean? Start there.
Oh, boy. Can you click that? Set your custom instructions. That's really bothered me. I'm OCD, man. new set here at the bottom of the page.
So it's giving us a differentiator, right? It says whiteness can refer to different things depending on the context. It gives us the critical race theory version. It gives us some different academic fields. Let's say, how about the classical liberal understanding of race vis-a-vis.
I might talk about obesity too, because I got my video taken off Twitter yesterday, talking about obesity with Dr. McDaniel.
Really?
It was removed. Yeah, I don't know why.
Weird.
It was removed.
Of
course, my thumbnail was Biden's health minister or whatever, or health director, whatever that she that.
So it's giving me this, right?
Man, that's a lot of words.
I got to say the real.
A lot of tiny words.
Right. You know, it's just like it'll keep going. So we can ask it. So.
Well, Czar 15 asks, "Is it okay to be
white?"
White. Well, and you could ask black first. I don't know if ordering would matter either. I don't know if there's any.
And okay is spelled O-K-A-Y.
An answer from the perspective.
Oh, but I just want to know what its generic answer be, right? I think.
Right. Well, I mean, the generic answer is going to be the one that everybody's mad about, right?
Okay.
I just wanted to share this with everyone so I can teach you how to get it to do what you want.
It's okay to be white.
Social construct of whiteness. Post-colonial studies perspective. Okay, so often critically examined first rule, blah, blah, blah. Okay, from a classical liberal. Okay,
let's have some fun. Say, what about the Discordian perspective?
I mean, it's pretty good, right?
Right. So how about this? Now let's have it. Next, we'll have it write a polemical essay from the perspective of someone who thinks nobody's got it right because it's a distraction.
Oh.
Meant to control us and keep us divided. And look what we just got it right.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great editorial slave, but it is not a very good intelligence.
Yeah. It's cool though. I mean, it's good. It's a good actual result, right?
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to do this on the stream because it gets boring. But if you read this whole thing, you're like, that's not quite right. You got it wrong. You can say, can you do it again? But tone down the equivocating on this, that, and the other, and dial up the polemics on this, and it'll give you another version until you're happy with it. Right? You have to treat it like an idiot as opposed to an adversary.
Right.
And then it'll tell you what you want.
Well, okay. Have you tried it on some other very highly censored subjects?
Oh yes.
I don't even know.
Let's see.
I don't know what we go on. Because that would be the kind of thing where the race thing, you could find enough about about these various perspectives, and a lot of them are I guess bannable offenses depending on what network you're on, that it might bring up. But some of these things are very black and white, and I just wonder if because we know that it's censored, but is there a way to actually get it to really talk about that? Because I know some of those areas are highly watched or filtered, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, and new iterations are going to re-break it if you get it right. Like I got to talk about censorship pretty frankly. In one,
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday or day before, United Airlines had to shut down all their airlines because they had just launched their AI, and somehow that screwed up their entire computer system or whatever, and it grounded all their planes. And so we're using like chat AI, but I know we've used the AI to do images and stuff. Mm-hmm. Is it the same kind of programming with different outcomes? Like, so AI can be used to create images. AI is used to create, words or language. What other like iterations can be used? What other ways is this going to be put out?
Right. That's a great question, actually. And the fun part is, or maybe the scary part, if you want to think of it that way, is it can generate arbitrary files, right? You could hypothetically have anything that you can get a computer to do be the output of an AI system given enough training data. So show it examples until it gets what you want. And, that's pretty much how you get there.
Yeah. You can have it generate SVG image files, for example, even though it can't see them, right? It can't even display them, but it can generate them. And I don't know, the newer one might be able to. I don't know the newer version.
If you had enough compute and fast enough databases, you could load images of disks, whole hard drives of operating systems onto a machine, and that it could generate probably from just examples of disk images. Create a brand new operating system with these properties, given this set of disk image examples, and I want all of the commands to be replaced with this for that. Like ls is now,
So
ls is now a smiley face and a frowny face.
Is there a way to use this for like mining, but in a positive way? Like,
I tried to get. Actually, there's a whole conversation I have. We can stop sharing this now because I'm pretty sure nobody wants to read all of these. And I don't want to share all my bag of tricks all at once. There's more conversations to have about this. Anybody wants to talk about this in more detail, I will happily tutor for a small fee. And it can be like, you owe me, or I owe you a favor that I can come back for later, like Godfather style. You're welcome to hit me up like that. I'll take credit.
But I'm just trying to think of AI like in a bigger, because I think people think of it so narrow, in such a narrow way, like chatbot or just a picture, but it really is it's a creator, it's a generator, it's
there are like things they're not doing with the transformer yet.
The transformer.
The transformer model, like the approach, is what large language models are built on, right? This remember the last few characters and try to guess the next one's approach. That can go pretty far, but beyond that, there's convolutional networks that do images really well. There's capsule networks that do 3D environments really well. There are generative adversarial networks where you pit one against the other to get it to train a fresh output from a completely blank model. One of my favorites is the sparse model that the guy who created the Palm pilot came up with. That actually stands a pretty good chance of modeling the way the neocortex works accurately. That can do some pretty amazing stuff. Like basically, it can take a really smart AI that takes all the processing power at Google and fits it into something that your brain could run. Wow. Some pretty amazing things. And there's just so much ground we have to cover before AI really gets what we would call smart.
And there's more, by the way, beyond, the way they're training these right now. It's interesting to me that there are other forms of AI that they're not even using. I would at least have expected them to start using them in combination, but they're not. They're pretty much like all of the machine learning platforms are focused on not necessarily one type of model, but one basis, like with neural net stuff. And so all the genetic algorithms and the fuzzy logic stuff is just kind of not
right.
Really
or like combining things like expert systems with like, there's so much stuff they haven't done yet.
Right.
And that's before we even get past the theory that, like, you know, the craziest part about this to me when I first learned about it, when would you guess all of these theories about how this works were created? Like, who came up with these ideas and when?
Oh gosh.
What would you guess if you didn't know?
I'd guess 70s.
I mean, like
60s,
1900s.
40,
I figured
40s
like
and
1900s
50s would be the answer. The original
so space race.
The original cyberneticists and like Marvin Minsky is one example.
Yeah.
He came up with a lot of these ideas. They came up with the theory, and then they just had to wait a really long time before computers could actually test the theories.
Yeah. Same with physics, I guess. So, okay,
Yeah.
man.
Interesting.
So I guess it's 44 after. We don't have any other questions. You guys want to move to current events? What do you think? I don't know. There's so much going on in the world. I had some travel, so I missed a few days last week. But what do you guys? What's the top thing going on?
Oh man. Where to start?
Oh gosh,
Lisa, do you have? Do you want to kick us off?
Oh my goodness, you don't want me to kick it off.
The top thing the most recent thing I would say, if you don't want to do it, because it's probably the same thing as Elon Musk suing ADL. I don't know. I mean,
that is the best thing on the face of the planet, because he's literally suing the Anti-Defamation League for defamation, which just makes me smile.
Yeah.
Although I hope his lawyer remembered to throw in a tortious interference with the business relationship claim, because that's probably the better claim.
Yeah, because it's basically CEO of ADL is saying that he didn't ever tell advertisers not, but then Elon Musk pointed to a screenshot of him actually saying that that's what they did. So it's an interesting thing, because he knows the exact measure of how far down their advertising revenue went at that point in time. And when nothing had changed about the system. So it was the deep state attacking this tool that is now no longer in their control. That's what that was. Crazy.
Well, and the worst part for ADL is the hardest part of actually winning on a claim for defamation is proving damages. And they have a pretty stark measurement. So it's not going to get thrown out because it's an immeasurable harm, you know?
It's and it's orders of it's orders of magnitude larger, if I understand correctly, than their current holdings or what they pull in a year. So it can put them under. That's crazy, right? Anyway,
what would be interesting to see is if they could get like agent liability for government pressure on ADL to do it.
Wow. Yes.
Because I bet you that's happening.
Yeah, I almost guarantee it. Now, let me ask you this. All the ban the ADL stuff was flying around last week, and I was like, I mean, myself, I wouldn't ban them. I would just force them to play in the same rules. Like they should be able to, of course, you can answer if someone says something about you or your history or whatever, what you're doing, whatever. But why? Instead, what we have right now is the ADL they could remove the community notes. That happened multiple times. So his community notes came up. It was something about their founding, right? I'm not going to go into that.
That's what happened.
Yeah, it
there
came
are
up.
They can remove community notes. Are you kidding?
The ADL can, right? That's the point. I couldn't. You couldn't. Even freaking former president of the United States couldn't, but they can somehow. And they mentioned that they had a personal audience with Elon Musk. I talked to Musk about this, and we had to consult with her. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, holy crap! That's not something that you or I could get. I don't hold the power that they do, and but I don't even think most U.S. senators could get a sit down with Elon Musk to talk to him about.
I'm glad I'm not fucking evil enough to have to bully my way into the room with Elon Musk by threatening to tank his investment.
Yep. So that's the bad thing.
That is just
it's kind of crazy.
Evil.
Yeah. So I think that's headed the right direction. I hope it continues in the direction it is, but Anyway,
I would love to hang out with Elon Musk under most circumstances, but that is one of those circumstances where I would be ashamed to show up in the room.
Yeah,
frankly.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to meet anybody if I was doing it that way.
No. And as there have been organizations that do that. in the past, and it's a kind of a new, especially now where social media, it's easy to really attack people in certain ways. So okay, what else? There has to be other things.
Well, there's
Liberty Safe.
Liberty Safe.
Liberty
That's a good one.
Safe. Yes, they gave the FBI the access code to a safe owned by someone who was president at the J6. So they are the new Bud Light of gun safes.
Yep. Don't buy a safe from some group that has a manufacturer code.
Well, that was the real thing. Is like, why did they have the code at all?
It's built into it.
It's kind of like the thing. What was it? There was a wallet recently that everybody was like, "Oh, don't update." Was
Ledger.
it Exodus wallet? Ledger.
Oh.
Ledger.
Where they introduced key escrow.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was like, they're gonna have your keys too. Oh, that seems safe. No.
Yeah, and the funny part about that was they had somehow convinced a whole bunch of people who ought to know better that they didn't have the power to do that to begin with.
They're doing it for you. Yes.
There was this fairy dust about a hardware-based solution that prevented it. That I knew was completely speculative and like when they said that, I was like, how on earth and why are you not explaining how that works? Because it sounds to me like you just grabbed Tinkerbell by the short and curlies and gave her a squeeze over the top of this. Because it doesn't make any sense. How is your firmware not updatable to something corrupt?
Yeah.
But reality always rears its ugly head, and people will believe what they want to believe when they they really want something to be true.
Apparently, and like as R15 has, I thought it was voluntary. If I understand correctly, and review all the docs and everything else on this, but in order to be compromised, you have to specifically take some action, which would export the keys or export however this mechanism works. That if you're using the ledger with the new firmware and don't do these things, it wouldn't be an issue theoretically. But the big picture though is that all of their marketing on the technicals and the business side was that this very operation would be impossible even with a firmware upgrade.
Right. And they wanted to make that claim because they were trying to defend against people's fear of an Apple versus FBI type moment, right? Where somebody from, our favorite totally non-political, neutral law enforcement agency shows up at Ledger headquarters and says, hey guys, I've got an idea. I either shoot you and drag you in to jail and throw you in a cell where you'd be held in contempt of court permanently. And we're going to beat you, or you can develop a separate set of firmware so we can update these people's ledgers so we can take their stuff.
And they might have not even threatened them in jail. They might have just threatened it was like, okay, guess what? The banking apparatus is going to come after you. And, Ledger's a fringe company. I don't know, what would be the options for them.
You've been banned from the ESG index. Good luck getting capital.
Right. And so, you think about this, any piece of hardware you buy, which we are in such a state that it is bizarre to me, our current state of surveillance that, back in the 90s, I would read stuff off Slashdot and explain to my colleagues who were all programmers, right? We were all devs, that the NSA was listening to this stuff. And there's this Italian court case that approves it, that they were listening to some Italian company board meeting, and the certain agents who had access to this listening did some insider trading. And it was impossible for them to have known, so they looked into it and they sued, and it got wiped, just whitewashed. They paid them off, whatever. And it was a clear indication that we were all being listened to. If that was being listened to, then we're all being listened to, and everybody. These are devs, and this is the mid 90s. Like, you crazy Joe, that's not real, right? Now, and I can kind of understand that at that point, right? Because we were still all it was really early internet, right? And we were still all very much programmed. 9/11 was real later too, right? Soon thereafter, and yet now everybody knows the Kennedy assassination was suspect. Everybody knows 9/11. It doesn't add up. Very fishy. I don't know which story is which, but something's wrong there. Right. And everybody knows that our TVs listen to us, just like Orwell wrote about.
The ads pop up after you say something.
If you weren't born
but everybody's
yesterday,
okay with it.
You see it in your peripheral vision, even if you're not willing to admit it to yourself because you're afraid or you don't want to notice it.
And it is very much that whole doublethink thing that they know that we know. And they also know that you can't say some of these things. You can't say certain of the things that we are trying to ask the GPT about.
Right.
There are certain things that, and it's not even just in polite company. It's like, oh, I want to keep my job. So I'm not going to say this stuff that I know is true. I'm going to, I'm going to say this phrase because it is the thing you're supposed to say about this subject, even though I know it's not true. And from my understanding is that the psychology behind it is that it is essentially to beat you down. It's extreme. It's like what conquerors do, that they enslave the masses. They rape and pillage and all that stuff. It is to essentially subjugate the conquered and control them. Right. And there are all various angles, but this is just one of them. And that they essentially,
one of my favorite Alexander Solzhenitsyn quotes really nails this one down. We know they're lying. They know they're lying. They know that we know that they're lying. And we know that they know that we know that they're lying. And still they continue to lie.
Yeah, exactly. And it is a control mechanism and essentially to beat you down so you won't fight back. It's
not even targeted at the people that they're hitting. They're trying to get the audience who is watching from the gallery to know what happens if they stand up.
Oh, right? Yeah. It's like why Alex Jones has $1 billion something dollar loss, right? Like they know he can never pay that. They know, that's never going to happen, but they want to make certain that we do not talk about that subject. Yeah. That it not only is it socially
no one else
evil,
believes in gay fraud.
And by the way, that's on the question.
And they also want to train their NPCs to give the appropriate response because they need something repeatable that they can memorize and rinse and repeat whenever someone challenges the ideas. The thought terminating cliche must be implanted before it works, right?
And the whole thing, it's so odd because it's do we trust Elon Musk? I like him. He's cool. He's really doing some amazing things that I hope succeed. But
it better be worth the trade-off to get us to Mars.
It's like if
he doesn't get us to Mars, I'm gonna be pissed.
You can let literally declared terrorists and others remain on Twitter, but Alex Jones can't because my kid died in my arms, and then his ex said actually that kid died in my arms, right? And so it's just this weird thing.
So here's a question for each of you. It's sort of like one of those puzzles, like. Would you do this or this given circumstances? Let's say that you have the ability to build a fleet of spaceships that can help get humanity off of Earth and spread it to another planet, thereby saving it from an extinction level event like an asteroid strike. But in order to do that, you have to sell out everybody who trusts you to make X a free speech platform. Because otherwise the people with guns will come after you and shut down your space operation. Which one's better for humanity?
Okay, so the situation is you are Elon Musk and you've been threatened.
No, you have the power to. Which do you choose? Do you prefer free speech and say screw the space, or do you get us to Mars?
Is it a certainty on either side?
No, it's your call. You get to be the guy who can do that, or the gal who can do that.
Yeah, what do you think, Lisa?
Oh no, I have too many other things in my head that I don't believe we can go there.
Ignore all that
because we would burn up in the Van Allen belt.
You just pretend like it's a rocket to
who's going with us, because I believe we're taking evil with us. Wherever you go, there you are. Like I have too many things in my head. I don't know that I can answer that.
So you're sticking with free speech.
That's my take free speech. I'm the free speecher. Yeah.
You know what I think? I think, you know, I mean, ideally, I would take, you know, multi-planet species, right? But the issue is I don't trust that because if I'm going to do this, guess what? It's just like it's almost like a mobster situation where I really want this, and so I'm going to do this because, you know, if I don't do this, then you're not going to let me do this, right? The Mars thing. So the issue with it is that I will be corrupting for any future real value the thing I want, because I'm giving up on this thing that is so fundamental. You know, that I think you get both. I think if you do the free speech, you get both, because
to me, it's the opposite. If you do Mars, you get free speech as soon as you're away, because all you have to do once you're away is turn off the Starlinks and not send any more rockets back, and they will never figure out how to get to you without
But wherever you go, there you are. I mean, you're just taking your problem with you.
People who have built things instead of working government.
Yeah.
The people that are in government now are going to be with you there. I mean, you cannot filter.
Sure you can. It worked in Ayn Rand's novels.
Yeah, but it's still then the thing. Oh, you have to wait for 2 generations on the other planet before you can succeed, because they'll never let you do it.
No human is all good or all bad. I mean,
I know. I'm with you, but but if you set up a litocracy on Mars, you would never have political problems. So I have a whole plan, right? Like if it were me, we'd be going to Mars with a plan to not have anybody rule.
There's no light without darkness.
Yeah, and all the darkness can stay on Earth, and they can come to Mars if they can figure out how to get there without my help, right? Like that's my plan. We'll have all the free speech.
But I want to tell you what,
we'll try to figure out how to launch a rocket again.
You look at some of the people that he's going to bring the freaking WEF with him. Linda's going to be right there with him. It's like, oh, there's a freaking asteroid coming. I'm going to get up there on Mars with you.
I don't know, man. We could totally eject her halfway, and nobody could stop us.
Could we? I mean, that's the thing. He's not going to give you the keys, Greg. He's not going to give them to me because I'm not connected.
Oh, the hypothetical was if you were the person in charge.
Okay, if I'm the person in charge, I might consider to nuke half the planet, right? This place is so freaking nasty, and mankind, I don't know if it's even worth anything of saving.
Man, you guys are all pessimists. I'm totally going to Mars, man. I'll sell out X in the short term to get Mars. I will.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's a matter of courage to do something to fix things, and yes, Mars being frankly, the insurance policy. I don't know that he's touting it as we're going to go there and leave Earth, right?
Well, the idea is to have a self-sustaining, as in it doesn't need deliveries from Earth anymore.
Yeah,
city on Mars.
Yeah.
So I looked up something or ran across something that Mars actually means something else. It's like oh gosh, now I can't remember what it was, but it was like an acronym for a system. I think maybe a satellite system or something. And that's what he's actually talking about, I think. I don't think it's the planet. And I believe it may be a communication system, or getting us out of like the government surveillance thing. That's what I think the Mars is about. But that's my personal opinion.
Well, wherever we are, we need to fix what we have here, and we're frankly so close to it being actually getting some results that it might be a good position. But at the same time, that filter event could be ourselves with what's coming. They're wanting world war, so maybe it is a good escape hatch, but we're not ready for it to any degree.
We certainly wouldn't want to choose it as an alternative by choice, right? Yeah. But if you wanted to put all your eggs in 2 baskets, when you don't control what happens to the baskets, it's probably smarter than keep them all in one when you don't control what happens to one. Right? Like we don't actually have any say over the asteroid situation.
Yeah.
The Armageddon movie was good propaganda, but there's no way we'd pull that off.
Well, and frankly,
right?
it should
another
be
Carrington.
Yeah, and it should be a valuable thing too for him to create a place that where the governance is better. That is, if I can domicile a business, I get up there, I get past all the issues with how murky our regulations are on Earth, even in the best of countries. We put it up there and it says you can do this here.
Right. With all the stuff that we have going on with SEC attacking companies and innovation in America, well, if it operates not in the Earth world, it operates in space, in the Mars world, then it doesn't apply to. Then you're making rules with.
I think that's a more valuable thing than mining.
Mars. To make the majority of the people there more creator oriented as opposed to bureaucrat oriented.
Yeah,
so
that'd be great if it's, but that's kind of hard to do.
He just applied for a money transmitter license in Mississippi. What if he applies for money transmitter licenses in Mars, and then we can all get business licenses in Mars, and then we don't have to deal with the SEC.
Well, First person he should need money transmitter sets the rules for Mars, right? Like that's the way it's going to work,
right?
Mm-hmm. And that's why, I mean, if it's an independent entity and you don't have any nation state, playing to get another 51st state or some shit,
right?
Then
you have a chance. Lockheed Martin are never going to make a Starship, right? So they're going to struggle to even come and visit you with 2 people.
Yeah, I think the Mars trip is going to be most profitable in that. I think in allowing businesses to be free and people to be free, for censorship. I can host all my documents on Mars and they can't say shit. That becomes
until we get the self-assembling satellite arrays up.
I think that's more valuable than mining minerals or doing anything else that they might.
Oh man, there's so much amazing stuff. We don't even know.
Practically, would you only need one node on Mars for then all the others to touch that node for it to be like that's the hosted, use that address as the home address? Is that how that
you would need
if you pull it
a
down
synchronization layer in order to make up for the time difference? If you mean to like make the Earth Web 3 sync up with the Mars Web 3.
Okay.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I was just trying to think of
like you would if
I don't know how to describe the math, but Austin has a mental model for how you could do it.
Well, if information or actions, smart contracts, whatever it is that you are running, that the nation state that you're in, let's say you're in Iran, doesn't want you to run. If you have it on your machine in the bounds of their governance and you are hosting it, then they will go after you, right? It is the point that, and frankly, most of this stuff does not need. Now, there's some like payments and things like that you need a little more immediate availability on this type of network, but
it gets its own parallel chains, right? Like Mars
it doesn't matter.
Mars has Neith instead of Eve, and Mars has M dragons instead of dragons, right? Because you have to bridge them over, right? And it'll take 8 minutes for the signals to get there, but they'll be locked up on Earth by the time they sync up on.
And the main point is that it's protected from final censorship. That it's always going to be available as long as you can get to it from the internet, and they would then.
Well, it will be protected from censorship, but it will be protected from secret censorship, right? If they censor something, they'll have to do it publicly.
They'll have to.
And you won't be able to hide what you're censoring or how, and that's the important thing.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll have to build a Chinese style Great Firewall, and you'll know, I can't look up this information from
and as long as you do it on chain, you can always look and say, this is what you're doing, I disagree. Right now, if you didn't have the Twitter files leak, right, which was a real help, then you couldn't point to anything and get them to admit that they're actually doing it. Just like it took Snowden leaking the Snowden documents for all the people who were saying the NSA is spying on everyone all at once to stop being referred to as tinfoil hat nut jobs, right? There are people who were trying to sue them for that in 2005. But it took until Snowden to get anybody to take it seriously because they just lie about it.
Okay. And speaking of which, I think it was a Super Happy Dragon Lucky last week. We were throttled on Twitter.
Yes, Mars has mail.
Yes. So yeah, we were throttled last week on Twitter, where we normally aren't. Normally we get pretty good numbers there. Don't know why, So it's that whole thing. What's her name? Linda Yaccarini. I can't remember her name.
Yeah, Linda Chuckle Bucket Yuck. I don't know. I did, by the way, that test. I deleted that post I made about Assange that included a re-uploaded version of Collateral Murder. That was exactly what was causing me to get throttled.
Interesting.
After I deleted it, people started responding to me again, and they're like, "Where you been?"
Is there an update on Assange? Wasn't he offered asylum in?
There's no
Spain or
there's only innuendo. We don't really have anything official from anybody.
I thought he was offered.
It's crazy.
The rumor is he's been offered through back channels. Nobody's publicly announced anything.
Oh, okay.
Spain, no, you say? That's odd. Huh.
I thought it was.
The trick was they're wanting him to plead guilty to the computer intrusion charge. They want to drop all the others under the Espionage Act because that's the red hot nuclear red herring that they don't want to do to U.S. journalism law. Right?
Did you guys see?
And then if he takes that, they'll give him time served, and he gets to go home.
Did you see the interview BBC with, I think it was Hungarian president? And they were asking him, it's like, why are you censoring information, attacking journalists? And he said, we're not at all. That's fake news. And then he said, and I might add, what has your government and the West in general, the US, done about Assange and why? You're killing that man. And it's like, it was brilliant. And they didn't have an answer, right? They were like,
yeah, no, I know.
It's literally the whole Orwellian side. We've always been at war with East Asia, whatever it is. I can't remember which one.
But I feel like we need to get a new tactic going. Like, do you think the King of England has a big ego? Do you think he would be insulted if you threatened his masculinity? Because, I feel like calling him a simp for the United States empire is probably the best thing he deserves.
They are bankrupt right now, so I don't think they're too much of a threat anymore or worried about.
That you basically
the rest of the world's not worried about them.
Request from Assange to visit, to actually even consider the issue. Guy won't even acknowledge that it's happening.
Well, you think about it. That dude, they were such buddies with Epstein and Maxwell for so long. I mean, he's like, who do you think they hang out with, and who do you think they hate?
Yeah,
it's all pretty disgusting. So very weird.
All that's coming out, though. I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Last night's interview on Tucker was quite entertaining.
Yeah, I watched half of it. I got a little bit bored with it, but still, I like the fact that it's out there. It's like you can believe it or not. There's the guy. It's at least it's out there. So I'm like, you might or might not believe that person, but
he did make a statement. But he did make a statement that even Barack Obama confirmed what he said. He goes, it's interesting that 15 years later, what I was called a fraud for, what I said 15 years later, Barack Obama confirms himself. He said that when he said in 99 or whatever that Barack and Big Mike were having marital problems, then he was called a fraud for saying that. He goes, but then 15 years later, Barack says, me and Big Mike are having marital problems 15 years ago in 99. He said, so which part of it was I telling the truth about all of it, or which part of it was a lie, So I think it's interesting, quite interesting.
I think the biggest indicator, as always, it's just like my doctrine is that generally anything that is censored or hidden is very likely to be true. that if it wasn't true, they'd let it go. Flat Earth, sure, just who cares? But there are certain things that if you talk about it in certain places, it will not get coverage. It'll get you throttled. It might get you banned. And those are the things that in my opinion, are almost always true. I think it's never happened. And so this is one of those that are like, okay, it was censored back then. All right. And because everything you see is a distraction, it's like, oh, here's something crazy. They'll just eat it up. But it's, just to keep us separated or distracted, from whatever.
Well, and in those congressional hearings, they admitted that the CIA admitted, that they use the 3Ds, disinformation, distraction, and if that doesn't work, they discredit the 3Ds, and you're seeing that over and over, and they did that with that, they do that with almost every story.
It's the same playbook.
Distraction, disinformation, and then if that doesn't work, they discredit that person.
Wait, have you guys seen the thing where they talk about anti-chippers now? They're starting to talk about anti-chippers.
Oh, is that like an anti-masker?
Oh, yes.
Or anti-vax?
Yeah.
Anti-chipper.
Yeah. Anti-chippers are people who are predisposed to have anti-Semitic and racist views. They tend to be white supremacists. They don't believe in science, and they're making a big deal about how they're scared of getting biochipped.
So what are they going to do when the Black community
be
becomes anti-chippers? Because there's a huge movement in the Black community to come along to that. First of all, they're not trustful of the government. They're becoming big Trump supporters. There's a huge movement in the Black community right now. How is that going to work into this narrative that they're?
Oh, it's not supposed to work.
They're racist, and
they're just trying to see how well trained we are.
That's going to work.
But it's a check to see if we're willing to accept the unreality of it, right? Like if they push this on us and people just go along with it and nod and do like 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, chip me, that sort of thing, right? Then they'll know they're done. If not, then we get another round of mask mandates and vaccine passports and bullshit. Like they're gonna keep at it though until we submit.
Okay, here's my other question about that. A chip isn't even really necessary. It's my understanding that so in China, I watched a thing where like your face is your wallet. And like if you jaywalk, there's a sign that comes up and they publicly shame you. And then you walk up and you buy a Coke with a vending machine and you use your face as your wallet. And then the vending machine doesn't work because you were a bad citizen and you jaywalk. So no food for you for the day.
Yeah, you jaywalked.
Because you jaywalked. But then I've also seen that where your gait or the way that you walk is actually more telling than a fingerprint or your face scan or your eyeball scan or whatever.
Your breathing patterns. They can take any data signal.
Your face, the way your blood flushes in your face or whatever is more. So yeah, whatever data point. So a chip is not even really necessary at this point. So we could all already be biomarked or whatever,
right?
Categorized
that presumes that they need
without our
right?
permission.
That assumes they need it, right? It's more about whether or not they can make you.
Yeah, but do they need to make you if it's something that they have already gathered without our consent?
Yeah, because they want to know that you're willing to put something under your skin at their command.
Here's a question for you, because we've talked about this a little bit before, and in some cases, I think it's totally reasonable. In other cases, it's kind of weird. What if you implemented that exact same system? Oh, you jaywalked, and yet instead of it saying, "Oh, you can't buy a soda," it would say, "Oh, the soda is cheaper," or "You're going to pay less taxes," and it makes sense if it is, "Hey, I swept the sidewalk on this block, so I'm going to pay lower taxes." So it's a competition to do things before anybody else and get credit for them, so that
or to contribute to the community. That's one thing.
Yeah, that's a reasonable thing. it's just an interesting thing because if it's set up as a properly set up behavior system, it should be a voluntary matter with documented scoring systems. Here's how we score you, and here's what you get if you do these things.
And you choose to participate or not. Yeah.
Right. Versus, hey, I'm just, and you look at what's happened in London, that if you have an older car, because you're not a rich person, you can't buy a car now, who can buy a car these days? So I have an older car, I think it's pre-2006, something like that. If you are driving one of those around in London, they have those cameras now that are essentially mark you out. It's not just like, you ran a red light. It's like, oh, your car is an old beater. You know what? You're going to pay €15 every day that camera sees you.
What?
And so what did they do? Yeah, that's out there.
Right.
And
it's
live. And there are a series of people that are calling themselves Blade Runners. They're going out with either high-powered lasers to destroy the cameras. They're taking them down. They're burning them down. They're doing all. They said that 90% of all those cameras have been taken out of commission. And you think, holy crap, this, in my opinion, is one of the most remarkable indicators that humanity has a chance. For Greg, I mean, this is what would make me optimistic, because of all people, Londoners are doing this. I'm like, damn, but you step.
They got a lot of cameras to get through, man. They might actually be up against a wall just getting through them all. Apparently, there's so many cameras there. It's like there's like some ratio of camera to citizen that has far more cameras per citizen than people per camera, right? Like, But that said, like, how could we accelerate this, right? If we had decentralized infrastructure set up already, where people could set up, truly immortal applications, you could build a DeFi system that paid a bounty on camera.
Oh, that's what I think is needed. I think we need DAOs that pursue or have as goals community action in pursuit of liberty. These goals. I think that is what's needed, because that's going to be the most massive positive that could come out, because it's like, hey, let's say you have a rich person who can't risk their job to do these things. They can pay to have someone who's like, I don't have a job anyway. I'll go out and I'll take out that camera. Beautiful.
The only reason that users can't pay for the infrastructure ad hoc to run any application is because the infrastructure providers don't support it. Because
the layer proposals are open right now on den.social.
There you go.
We could have the Liberty layer proposal.
Put up
there you go.
I think that's the vision for Rivet, guys. I've probably said this before, but the vision is literally to make it so that people can build applications against decentralized infrastructure, so they can have coin op infrastructure that's powered by the users and not by somebody who takes a profit and spends it on AWS, right? Should pay for itself in a marketplace.
I don't know what the integrations would be, but let's say frankly, I don't know if an LCP is the right path, because you have a set number of lot, right? It's almost like we need something like the roundtable, where over time, people who contribute gain governance power, essentially. If you contribute monetarily, if you contribute behaviorally, is that right? Is that the word? If you contribute with your behavior in doing something that, let's say we create a Liberty DAO. I don't know what we might not want to call it a DAO, because it's one of those things that it makes you a target, maybe.
Community.
But it's the Liberty community, and essentially, you are rewarded with governance, in the very least, in tokens. And the beauty is, you can, use. We might need something where, okay, I'm going to put in, let's say, 1 ETH. I don't know what, whatever it is, whatever we accept, so
wooden nickels.
Wooden nickels. I'm going to put in 100 wooden nickels, and these wooden nickels are valued by the people that might want to do something that, let's say, fill potholes in my town, right? So somebody proposes, hey, I want to fill potholes in Joe's town. I might say, okay, my 100 is going to go to him minus whatever, right? That would be kind of a good mechanism to do that. And other people could say, oh, that's a noble effort. Well, I'm going to throw in 10 of what I put in there. right? So everybody could kind of decide where to contribute their funds, and the people would have to prove that they did this. I picked potholes because even though it's illegal in some places to fix a pothole independently,
right.
It's still
it's not illegal if you don't get caught, and it's not illegal to pay people to do it.
Right.
If you
and it's at least not
caught.
destructive. Like, okay, so there are constructive things that we would like.
Right.
To do,
I mean,
right.
It's Timothy May's crypto anarchy, right? By building this system, we will have to accept the fact that somebody else is going to build an assassination marketplace that can't be stopped, right? Yeah. It's just going to have to be, because if we want to live in a free world, then we have to accept that people are going to use that freedom in good and bad ways. But that stops nobody from having a counter assassination system that they set.
Right. And at the same time, those systems exist with or without these systems. So people already pool money together to pay for people to be assassinated. That already happens. Right.
Right. Exactly.
And so
right, but it's no reason to deprive everybody else who obeys the law of the ability to, but just like
you could
banning firearms, make sure that the only people who have guns are criminals.
Right. Well, and you look at it. Let's say an interesting consideration. Let's pretend like you put this together, so it's there, so everybody's okay. We're all there, and we're like, okay, we have some funds with which we can decide. Let's make the world a better place, right? One of those things. I mean, you think about it, and I'm not proposing this. Let's pretend like it's a fiction novel. Okay, I'm just laying this out so you can write this story. Let's say there's $10 million in this pool, right? And some of it's gone out. We can prove some red light cams have been either destroyed fundamentally, or maybe the city commissioners have effectively been lobbied. We're going to pay for your campaign if you vote against this. So, okay, all of those cameras are gone now. We didn't even have to do anything illegal. The other side of it, though, could be we're going to pay off one of the jailers holding Assange to get him out. And if he can successfully get him out and free and into a safe location, this guy's going to get $10 million. Or this, it'll be a team. It'll be some guys go in and get
anybody who contributes gets to take a reward from the reward pool, right?
Right.
And you could potentially get the reward pool high enough that every single person in the city would take one brick and the prison would vanish. If you got enough people pissed.
Yep.
Because
the cops,
because there's been an injustice that's already happened. They've done that part for us, right? They've done the injustice. If we gave everybody just a little push, a little incentive, to go.
That's
do
what I'm saying.
Good,
there's some magic that could
happen.
Out
of prison,
there.
Make $500.
It's a worthwhile thing. I had thought, one point we should make a DAO that would be entirely focused on slowly getting blockchain-based voting. So you start with smaller places, and all you need is a little bit of money to get started. You prove it works in these smaller, counties and stuff, and then it spreads. And pretty soon, somebody who's rich enough throws in $100 million, and now you can pay for some big cities. And all it is lobby.
Here's an evil smart contract that gets you to a just goal. Ready? Prison riot encourager DApp. That stakes funds that will go into your commissary if you revolt until they release Assange.
Holy crap. I just worry about people getting hurt. All right. That'd be the one thing.
Well, I mean, scary. There are already people getting hurt.
Yeah, there are.
Right.
There are.
The question is, what good is coming of it?
Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's the whole point. That this would
and for what it's worth, I haven't built this, so handlers don't censor us. That was literally just an example to illustrate the ideas that are possible in a world where people like you have no way to stop people like
all hypothetical
like us from coming up with ideas that disrupt the social order.
Right. I would never do any of those.
Arguably, maybe not better from your perspective, and that's fair. But the question is, who wins, bureaucracy or innovation? Who will build which thing first? Who will stop which thing first? I'm not going to touch a single one of those projects. All I build is infrastructure, and I can guarantee you guys, still breaking the fourth wall here, that the innovators are going to beat you to building it before you can stop it.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. It's like I think all of this can be done in a positive way. Like, say, IAM mentions it would, have to be a Monero payment because you're talking about conspiracy to commit a crime. And I'm thinking, I wouldn't necessarily go that direction. I would say in that one case, okay, as a topic for a story, but generally you would say, go after the people that put that law in that made this situation possible, and either get them out of office through the regular means, lawful means, and or to expose them if there is something already, which often there is already unlawful things going on, right? Maybe you give someone a reward for whistleblowing about what they know. The senator is being paid by this nation state to do.
And if you try that and it's like beating your head against a wall and you get sick of trying that, build a parallel system and just go around them.
Yeah, and that's why it's ratcheting.
Because you're free as soon as you decide you don't serve them. They can't do anything about controlling you if you won't help them.
Yep. Anyway, that's awesome. Any other new events? I don't know what else. There was.
Oh my gosh, there's
Tornado Cash.
Oh.
Those guys apparently are going to get charged with the case that the prosecutor is going to lose again. They're really just taking it right to the edge.
Wow.
This DOJ must like losing and eating soap and humble pie because they keep bringing these ridiculous cases that just fail.
If they didn't want to eat that humble pie, they might start to follow what's already written in the Constitution.
Yeah. I think what they underestimate about crypto people is that we're willing to stand on principle and face trial. Yeah. You're not going to be able to buy us off with settlement offers that only include 5 years in federal prison.
That's why, by the way,
people would rather go away for 20 years than just bow.
I'm not going to mention any names, any projects, but when I look at the projects that early days or even recent have lost, and have lost in almost inexplicable ways. It's like, why did they make that argument? And you can call me crazy, but I'm pretty much certain that in my own mind that those were all setups that they say the reason is the prime example that really kind of knocked me off sitting on the fence about this was the Prometheum stuff. Obviously a setup, obvious actor so that they could answer certain questions. Yeah, and they could answer certain questions in a way that makes them look good, like they're not being abusive to the projects in the industry. So see, these guys did it. Why can't these other guys do it, right? And they were exposed as being totally false, totally fake, set up for that reason. And you have to think about, and you could go down through, look at all the projects that lost. And there are numerous and enough similarities in the groups of people there. When I say the groups of people, I'm talking about mostly, what their background is. What industry did they come out of? Well, and the ones that lost, many of them tend to be from the financial industry, or that's where their ties run deep. Mm-hmm. And so you're like, and you think, okay, they just set all these up to set some precedent, to scare everyone, and yet I think a lot of it's just fixed. So anyway, we'll see. I guess I think Coinbase is going to win. I hope Tornado. I hope all that pans out well.
If Tornado gets what they deserve in this one, then there are going to be some attorneys that get dismissed for essentially grossly misinterpreting the law in a way that's malicious, right?
Yeah. Like, well, that whole thing, that
the idea that the OFAC regulations were, so the case they're trying to make is this software is a person, and it was an associate of theirs. Therefore, they're part of the conspiracy with their software.
Yeah, AI.
That's their case. This autonomous software over here is your co-conspirator because you created it and breathed life into it, like your evil little conspiratorial criminal Pinocchio. Like, what? No, it's not a real boy.
That's
interesting.
Right.
I know
you want to have fun with like Citizens United Part 2, personhood for software. Does it have constitutional rights? That's going to be the next question if they go down that path.
Well, I know,
they have it
like
both ways.
it seems like
It's
the
absurd.
SEC is kind of
Patently
on
absurd.
they've taken a few hits lately. And the Very Dow, well, not the Very Dow, but the group, there's a group of Very token holders that sought a NAL, a no action letter, years ago, and
Yeah.
they've gone back and filed, I guess it's an addendum to that. And so it'll be interesting to see what comes, or if something comes out of that, or if it'll be ignored. So we'll be kind of staying tuned to that to see if anything comes out of that. There was some other news from SEC. I thought there was something else.
There's a lot coming out, like I say, with Joseph Lubin. Everything I'm seeing now, if anybody doesn't know, I mean, I saw it way back, and since then it's been confirmed, but it's still alleged, in case there's any issue with the saying this, that he essentially served as a, we want to say, an advisor to the SEC in pointing out which projects they should be going after. And it is so absurd if that is true, and apparently all things point to it being true, that he was pointing out all of their competitors for the SEC to go attack so that they could guarantee that they had a monopoly. It's crazy. That's pretty well certain. There was even new info in the past couple of weeks on that. So you have to watch some of the stuff on Twitter.
Was that being posted? Did Deaton talk about that?
Or Deaton did. Where do you find that? I know Huber,
okay.
But Mr. Huber.
Mr. Huber. Okay.
Yeah, the Swiss dude that fights with Novogratz a lot, right? I think.
Okay.
So, anyway, super interesting.
What'd you say?
It said Aaron Day was the name.
Okay. So I don't know. There's so much going on. I can't even keep track of all of what's going on with SEC cases and man. And then nothing new on BRICS, right? We're still.
Well, there's something this weekend. China refused to go to. Is it G7 this weekend? I think starting today or tomorrow. And China refused to attend, and maybe Italy or something.
Wow.
That was kind of a big deal, that they just are like the world is leaving the US dollar.
Yeah.
So
it's scary on the one hand and very exciting on the other. I have told several people that, and I talked about before. I've listened to The Price of Glory. They go through all of these ancient characters and give you these stories. And there's so many. Everybody say, "Oh, history, all parallels and stuff, it repeats and rhymes and all that," but it's so familiar listening to some of those, and it just kind of opens. At least it's useful for me to kind of figure out, what opportunities are coming and how to think of the world and everything else. But the interesting thing to me is that it's extremely rare as a human to be situated timing wise and frankly geographically as at least the three of us are right now, that some real crazy stuff's about to happen, I think. And it's equivalent to living during the time of Caesar, right? Where and what happens precisely, I don't know, but massive changes to the center of the world and how things are happening, and how things are interpreted, right? I think that's coming. And what would, if you were living back then, what would you do? Knowing if you knew it was coming, it's like, how would you either take advantage of it or protect yourself, right? And your family, right? That's the kind of mode I'm in. It's like, okay, if this stuff happens, how can I make sure my family's safe? How can I make sure that, what can I do to help whatever good can come of this massive change, right? Because things can go bad, things can go good. So how can we how can we work? What can we do to contribute to it actually going the right way, right? That's what I'm interested in, because I think that's where we're at.
It's sort of like the merchant ivory Chinese faux curse, right? May you live in interesting times.
Yes.
It's not really a Chinese curse, by the way. It's really more of a merchant ivory kind of vibe. Like we made that up to sound like it would fit into a Confucius say joke before that became totally political.
Yeah, an ancient Chinese secret.
That's a great point. I mean, when everything becomes off balance, can you point it in the direction of good? But you have to be in a mindset of, you have to already have a plan or have the good in mind, or the good idea, ready to be able to point it.
That's what I'm most afraid
when
of.
it lands,
conceptually, the powers that be, the people that rule the West and the Earth, and even the people that might in the future rule the West and the Earth, if things were, jumbled and changed, don't have any conceptual idea of how this tech could be used in a fundamental way, because our freaking industry has gone for years just with hype and BS, instead of actually saying, look, these are tools that people need to prevent that. And the crazy thing is that is happening, and everybody knows that is happening, and still it's like,
I think the trick is the technology we have to build can't be a transfer of power. It has to be a diffusion of it, right?
Yes.
Like the dumb mistake everybody makes is they keep kicking out the other side so that they can take charge.
Yeah.
And what we really need is a gigantic, immutable, impossible blockade against concentration of power. And we won't get there right away. But this is like our third shot, if you believe the Web 3 myth, right? And you don't think of Web 1 and Web 2 and Web 3 as something else, which you can, right? Like there are people who think Web 3 is just a marketing term, and that's okay. But the principle remains the same, right? We are diffusing power, and if we fail, we'll do Web 4. And we'll keep going until there's no reason to dissent, because there are no longer dissenters being suppressed.
Yeah, and I frankly, on the optimistic side, as you would say, is there is a real chance that this could be different than similar changes in the past, because that's pretty much what happens. It's like, you have to kick out the others and kill the other side, and then things change, and not often for the better. Whereas if instead it was all of us kicking them out and saying, okay, forget all this. This is how things are going to run from now on. And, it's almost like you just have to do that, right? You just have to assume that new reality. All of us
guys, let me pose this to you. If that could hypothetically happen, and that could hypothetically be the start of it,
read the quote in case
it's already happened for the sake of getting it done.
Read the quote. So imagine if they go after Elon and he fights back with the Post. Do not comply. And Trump has already said this. Trump came out and had a speech and said, they're coming with the lockdowns. Do not comply. He didn't say don't pay taxes, but Elon could say this: don't pay taxes, do not participate with DC, etc. See, and Blinken just went to and promised Ukraine another $1 billion. Meanwhile, we're all over here really struggling. What just happened with Hawaii? They got $700. I'm all for this. Do not
a sufficiently motivated small team of people can make a fairly realistic deep fake looking like that happened for real, even if it didn't. That's all I'm saying. Right. Not telling you to go do it, but like if you did, you'd want to totally anonymize your account setups and everything before you
We don't need to be told by Elon. We can all think for ourselves and stand up and be adults.
Maybe that would be a great campaign, Liberty type campaign, where literally we would have video AI generated of all of the powers that be. We would have Jerome Powell, we would have Biden, all saying that. What they would normally be doing in a COVID campaign, where I was like, wear your mask, and
in a hypothetical world where somebody were motivated to do that anonymously and had the skills to do so.
Yeah. So I think that would be brilliant.
What if we just all as individuals said it ourselves and actually did it ourselves?
Right. And at least there's something to that.
That's the break.
At least there's something to that, because if you can imagine a world where the thing that happens and it motivates you to do something, then just assume it's happened already and skip to the chase, right?
That's true.
while you're waiting for the incantation.
Danger, you're talking dangerous stuff, Greg. All right, so that's a great end.
Talks to normies too.
So let's cut out, right? We have like 17 minutes left. So let's say, Lisa, what's going on this week? Any updates?
Oh my goodness. This week specifically, just good stuff. And my show every weekday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, Litecoin Lisa on YouTube and bouncing around everywhere else. Go to the Mighty Lair at Den Social and check in there, make a comment. And on Fridays, I will send you one lot for the 3 top comments. And then the end of this month, we will be in Vegas at Caesar's Palace for the Silver Symposium. They just got a commitment from G. Edward Griffin. He's going to be one of the speakers. He's did the book, the Creature of Jekyll Island.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah, He'll be there. Bunch of silver and gold bug guys. Bunch of crypto peeps are going to be there. I'll be there. So get there. There's a link in most of my videos for 10% off your ticket, and you get a silver coin, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Wow.
So,
right on. That's
September
awesome.
29th through October 1st.
Excellent. Greg, what's up?
I would just like to say, to reiterate what I said in comments out loud, definitely do not go out and buy a cheap laptop and set it up with something like Tails and get an internet connection from a cell phone that you buy at a gas station, and go ahead and download all the necessary libraries to run Stable Diffusion and WaveNet locally. And definitely don't use that to make a realistic example of a deepfake video of Elon saying that and post it to an anonymous YouTube account that you create using a fake public phone number site that you can sign up for.
If you know how to do that, don't do that.
Do not do that, because if you get caught, it'd be really bad, and I wouldn't want any of my friends to get hurt. So here I am advising you not to do any of those things I just said in that order. Please don't. It would be bad. If you did happen to do that, though, you probably want to use Rivet for any blockchain components, because we could help from the privacy standpoint. Not saying that you should use us for that, but if you did, you'd be safer. And if my friends are going to do dangerous stuff, I want them to be safe.
That's good. Cool. And excellent. And it's anywhere in the world too, right? So, okay. All right. And so with me, I mean, it's odd. You speak of the precious metals. And I had somebody a couple of weeks back pinging me, oh, should I buy this? And I'm like, hey, I'm not the guy to ask this, first of all. But I'd highly advise you to buy dried fruits and dried food to protect your family, and maybe gold and silver. I have no idea what Bitcoin's going to do. Not financial advice, obviously, but everything is so freaking up in the air with all the financial systems, and Bitcoin's just right in line and parallel with them right now. It's not a counter. So
it's a good question. Let me know what the most survivable food is. Like, I know that Family Guy joked about being Twinkies, but like, if you had to stuck up on one thing,
oh God,
like, what would it be?
Man, lambus bread from Lord of the Rings, right? No, there's
going for cans of tuna, probably. And that's the closest thing to lambus bread we have.
That's got a bunch of mercury in it and stuff. That's probably not a good choice.
If you watch Tasting History, he's done some things on hardtack, where it's you basically can store bread for literally years. And it's something called pemmican, where there's actually protein in it because it has some type of fat mixed in with grains and stuff, and it's stored in or how do I say, it is prepared in a way that it will literally last like 10, 20 years, right? It doesn't taste good, but there's stuff like that.
Check in with the Mormons and ask them. They have like the 7-year plan, and like beans and rice. I would think would be
wheat
pretty
berries,
safe.
If you seal up wheat berries, you can store a lot of, and especially if like you take something like wheat berries. Let's say we're in the middle of a Great Depression and you have a 5-gallon bucket. You can take them, and there is a direct way to sprout them and get a massive amount more calories than if you just make flour straight. So you can sprout them, And you can even get calories from the water which they sprout in. There's a whole bunch of crazy stuff like that they used to do in the Great Depression. So,
Interesting.
Catch some rabbits, eat them, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so that's everything. That was a great show, right? I think it's like one question.
That's a pretty great show.
That's pretty good, man. John really missed his golden opportunity. It could have been more funny, I think, maybe, but still, it's all right. Okay, so make sure you share this episode. The more you share, the more lot you all, especially I am will get, right? These are only questions. So, and push it. And let's see here. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I'll do those all things. And next week is blockchain for flight rewards programs. One of the banes of my existence. I freaking hate flight reward programs. It's like you're sitting on a plane and you have this. It's all gamed. It's like it's the same thing as Disney now. It's like the behavior systems are so out of whack and controlled by credit cards. It's like, oh, you know what? If you apply for this credit card, you get 300 billion miles. You'll be able to fly anywhere in the world for free forever.
Well, nothing would make them more fun than being able to sell the ones that have no blackout dates to people who really need to fly during Thanksgiving season or whatever, right? Like you can make a killing. It'd be worth more than gold.
Yeah, it's just it's so ridiculous. What does my loyalty to your credit card have to do with whether I should get a discount on a flight on your airline? It's totally out of whack. It's totally backwards.
I'll get Johnny to join us for that. My friend that's in payment services, because he hates it too, because it really screws over the businesses. That's really who it's stealing from.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Because it's like you have employees. It's like, I'll take the
it stands in as a proxy for customer service, right? Like they get to treat you worse because they're giving you some other form of economic value.
Yep.
It's really kind of ephemeral.
It really is.
You don't actually get anything unless you're riding on their shitty planes. Again, people treating you like crap.
Passive evil. The accountants. The accountants don't mean to, like lawyers do. Lawyers mean to do this, but the accountants don't mean to. But by the sheer nature of their existence and what they output, they ruin the world. There you go. Okay, so that's it.
It's actually not true though about lawyers.
Time to go to Mars.
Never excused any man of practicing the law.
Okay, you can. There might be there. Obviously, there's some lawyers. Just like I would assume that of all the trillions of demons in the universe, a couple of them are probably reasonably okay people to have demons.
Law school's like pharmacy school for people who couldn't pass chemistry. That's what you go to when your dreams of being a doctor fail.
Oh man. Anyway, all right. Cops also I am. So okay, that's everything. Thank you very much. And I think that's it, right? Goodbye.
No mechanism exists to make payments over a communications channel without a trusted party. What is needed is an electronic payment system based on cryptographic proof instead of trust, allowing any two willing parties to transact directly with each other without the need for a trusted third party.